so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? And they greatly feared extremely, and said one to another, what manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? I want to preach just for a few moments from the subject, I am a storm survivor. Why don't you just shake 2 or 3 hands around you and tell somebody, say, I'm a storm survivor. And if I could just get a little bit more help here in the monitors near me, that would help me out just a little bit. Dear brothers and sisters, there are some people and pastors along with some saints and servants whom I would call storm survivors. Not because they survived the storms of nature, but because they have survived the storms of life. You see, if you have ever had to survive when your month was longer than your money, you are a storm survivor. Am I going to have anybody help me now, preacher? If you have ever had to survive hell in your own family or a rupture in your relationship, you are a storm survivor. If you've ever had to provide leadership in a fellowship or a fellowship that had no fellowship, you are a storm survivor. So, brothers and sisters, I want to tell you, your storm may have not been tracked by CNN. Your storm may have not made USA Today. Your storm may have not been known by anyone else except you and God. Nonetheless, I want to tell you that you are a storm survivor. I feel like preaching for a minute. And so as we read Mark's Gospel, chapter 4, verses 35 and 41, we will discover that some storms are not predictable. You see, the writer said, there arose a great storm. And this phrase suggests that the storm came unexpectedly. The Sea of Galilee lies some 680 feet below sea level. And it is surrounded by hills, especially on the east side, where they reach up at least 2,000 feet high. And these heights are a source of cool and dry air. And often the cool air is descending from the hills will collide with the hot air ascending from the water, causing a storm to manifest in an instant. Well, I would like to tell you that life is often that way. Before you know it, you're in a storm. One phone call and you are in a storm. One email and you're in a storm. One trip to the doctor and you are suddenly in a storm. Storms are not predictable. But although they are not predictable, I need to tell you that storms are certainly purposeful. Because it is in the storms of life that God measures our faith. In verse 40, after Jesus had calmed the storm, he asked his disciples, why are you so fearful? And how is it that you have no faith? You see, my brothers and sisters, storms will reveal whether you are living in fear or living by faith. Y'all not going to help me here. Well, Pastor, what is fear? Well, fear is a state of anxiety and alarm due to an expectation of harm. But faith involves a complete reliance on God to do what is best for us in every situation. That's why faith and fear cannot coexist in the same space. We must either come to the storm in fear or through the storm in faith. You see, in this book, or in his book, The Meaning of Faith, the late Dr. Henry Emerson Fosdick says that fear imprisons, but faith liberates. Fear paralyzes, but faith empowers. Fear disheartens. Y'all don't want to help me. But faith encourages. Fear sickens, but faith heals. Fear makes you useless, but faith makes you serviceable. Ask somebody, say, what are you living by? In other words, the only way to survive your storm is by placing your faith and complete reliance in Jesus. Tell somebody, you better go to Jesus. I know you're going to your cousin and Aunt Booking them and your cousin and, and the people who say, I'm praying for you, because everybody who say they're praying for you, they don't mean they're praying for you. A lot of times folk lie every Sunday in church. I'm praying for you. They hadn't prayed since last year. But put your faith in the Lord. Tell somebody, I'm going to put my faith in the Lord. Well, this passage presents and pinpoints the places of our reliance if we are to be storm survivors. The first place that we should place our reliance is on his promises. Somebody say, on his promises. You see, if you're going to hold on to your faith, while going through your storm, you must rely on his promises. You see, when Jesus said, let us cross over to the other side, he stated this in a subjunctive mood, which means the statement was an imperative. In other words, it was not a suggestion, it was a command. It was not a proposition, it was a promise. In essence, Jesus was saying, come what may, we are going over to the other side. Indeed, the storms of life may come, but there is no way to go under when the Lord says, let's go over. Why don't you tell somebody, there's no way you can go under when God says, let's go over. What we must remember, that life's problems can become our preparation for the Lord's promise. This was certainly true in the life of Abraham. God had made Abraham a promise. But between the promise and the provision, Abraham encountered some problems. He had some lying problems. Y'all not going to help me, I see that. He had some family problems. He had some aging problems. Y'all not going to help me now? And it was not until he was 100 years old that Abraham finally received his son. And then Abraham received a message from God to take his son Isaac and sacrifice him. And that was a real problem. Y'all don't want to help me. Abraham didn't hesitate at all. He took his son and prepared to sacrifice him. But he knew that every other issue he had been through had prepared his faith for that day. Look at somebody and say, what you've been going through is preparing your faith for another day. Ultimately, Abraham sacrificed a ram and called that place Jehovah Jireh, for the Lord will provide. You see, you must understand, for every promise, there will be problems. But if you hold on, the Lord will provide for you. Hold on to the Lord's promise. Even when the storm is raging, tell somebody, you got to hold on. Hold on when you don't even see it, when you can't feel it. Hold on when you can't trace God's hand. You got to trust his heart. You got to hold on in spite of what may be and what may not be, what they may say and what they may not be saying. You got to hold on. Tell somebody, you got to hold on. God is depending on you to hold on, because somebody is watching you. The devil wants you to feel like you cannot go on. But tell somebody, the devil is a lie. I'm not giving up. I'm going to hold on. I'm going to hold on because God promised me. in 1989. A severe